Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more detailed videos. On today's dramatic episode of General Hospital, tensions exploded across Port Charles in ways that left everyone unsettled. Secrets came to light, dangerous games of leverage played out, and the stakes couldn't be higher for the people caught in the middle. The heart of the action centered on Drew as he took a calculated and ruthless step forward, blackmailing Jordan in a way that no one saw coming, while Sonny confronted Lulu in a charged encounter that threatened to rip apart family loyalties and expose deep fissures. The day began with Drew moving through General Hospital with a calm exterior, but inside he was running on cold determination. He had been quietly assembling information, piecing together details that gave him an advantage he'd been waiting for. Jordan had tried to keep control, trying to balance her role as commissioner with the messy entanglements of Port Charles crime and politics, but Drew was a step ahead. He knew things Jordan desperately wanted to keep buried, and he was no longer interested in subtle manipulation. Today, he made his move. When Jordan found herself face-to-face with Drew, there was a tense silence at first. She read his expression, immediately realizing this wasn't just a casual exchange. Drew leaned in, lowering his voice so that no one else in earshot could make sense of the conversation, and he laid it out plainly. He had evidence, he had leverage, and he wasn't afraid to use it. Jordan's eyes widened just slightly, betraying the unease she tried so hard to conceal. She had spent her career navigating dangerous people, but what made Drew's threat different was the cold precision with which he presented it. Drew didn't yell, he didn't posture, he didn't wave his arms in anger. Instead, he calmly explained that unless Jordan agreed to cooperate with him, to give him exactly what he needed, her career, her reputation, and her freedom could be destroyed in an instant. He was in possession of information tying her to decisions and actions that would be explosive if they became public. Jordan tried to deflect, to remind him of the law, of her authority as commissioner, but Drew cut her off with a quiet intensity that left her shaken. This wasn't about the law anymore, he told her. This was about survival, about playing the game the way it was actually played in Port Charles. Jordan pressed him for specifics, hoping to expose some kind of bluff. But Drew revealed enough to prove he wasn't bluffing at all. He knew details that no outsider should know, things she had only shared in confidence, and moments she thought had been erased from memory. How he had uncovered them was a question she didn't even want to voice, because the fact remained, he knew. And with that knowledge, he had power. As the conversation continued, Drew offered her one slim way out: cooperation. If she aligned herself with him, if she played her part when he needed her to, he would keep her secret safe. But if she defied him, the fallout would be catastrophic. Jordan weighed her options silently, trying to keep her face composed. On one hand, giving in to blackmail went against everything she stood for. On the other hand, refusing him could cost her everything she had built, not to mention put people she cared about in danger. Drew watched her closely, giving her just enough time to feel the trap closing in around her, then delivered the ultimatum. She had until the end of the day to decide. The exchange left Jordan shaken. She walked away outwardly composed, but once she was alone, the gravity of what just happened crashed down on her. She had been maneuvered into a corner by someone she underestimated, and the realization that Drew could weaponize her past against her left her rattled. She replayed the conversation in her head, trying to find a loophole, but the brutal clarity of the situation remained. Drew was holding all the cards, and unless she came up with a counterplay fast, she would be forced into his control. While Jordan wrestled with this devastating turn, elsewhere in Port Charles another confrontation was reaching a boiling point. Sonny, already dealing with mounting pressure from all sides, turned his attention toward Lulu. The confrontation wasn't just about one isolated issue, it was the culmination of tensions that had been simmering for weeks. Lulu had made choices, spoken truths, and taken actions that Sonny believed crossed a line, and today he wasn't holding back. When Sonny approached Lulu, his demeanor carried both disappointment and intensity. Lulu, however, wasn't about to be intimidated into silence. She squared her shoulders, preparing for the storm she knew was coming. Sonny began by laying out his grievances bluntly. He accused her of meddling in affairs that were beyond her reach, of putting herself in positions that endangered not only her but people around her. He reminded her of the consequences of crossing him, not in threats of violence, but in the sharp, cutting tone of a man who had seen loyalty betrayed too many times. Lulu fired back, refusing to let Sunny dictate the terms of the conversation. She reminded him that she had her own voice, her own agency, and she would not be silenced simply because Sunny demanded it. She pointed out that her actions had been motivated by truth, by her belief that people deserved to know what was happening behind closed doors. She accused Sunny of trying to control narratives and protect himself at the expense of others, and she wasn't going to apologize for standing up for what she believed in. The argument escalated quickly, voices rising as they went back and forth. Sunny's frustration grew as Lulu pushed back, and Lulu's defiance only hardened as Sunny tried to put pressure on her. The emotional undercurrents were clear. This wasn't just about the immediate issue. It was about family, about loyalty, about years of complicated history that had led to this breaking point. Sunny saw Lulu as reckless, as someone who had let personal feelings cloud her judgment in ways that endangered the larger picture. Lulu saw Sunny as a man who had grown too used to control, too used to intimidating others into submission, and she was determined not to let him do it to her. At one point, Sunny leaned in close, lowering his voice to a tone that carried both menace and pain. He told Lulu that if she continued down this path, there would be no going back. She would be burning bridges that couldn't be rebuilt, and she would find herself isolated in ways she hadn't yet imagined. Lulu, holding her ground, responded with equal conviction. She told him she would rather stand alone with the truth than be complicit in lies and cover-ups, even if those lies came from her own family. Hung in the air, neither one backing down. Sunny's jaw tightened, his eyes burning with frustration, but beneath the anger there was a flicker of something else, sadness, maybe even fear. Lulu had drawn a line, and for the first time, Sunny realized she wasn't bluffing. She wasn't simply lashing out in the heat of the moment. She was making a choice, one that could reshape relationships permanently. As the confrontation reached its peak, people nearby sensed the intensity. Though most kept their distance, the ripple effect was undeniable. The confrontation between Sunny and Lulu wasn't just a private argument. It was the kind of clash that would have consequences rippling out to others in Port Charles. Allies would be forced to take sides, and enemies would look for ways to exploit the divide. Back at the hospital, Drew reflected on his own confrontation. For him, the move against Jordan was calculated, but even he understood the risk. By blackmailing her, he wasn't just gaining leverage. He was also painting a target on his back. Jordan wasn't someone who would surrender quietly, and Drew knew she would be working behind the scenes to either neutralize his threat or flip the tables on him. Still, he believed the risk was worth it. For Drew, this wasn't about reckless ambition. It was about survival, about carving out power in a town where only the boldest moves kept you standing. Jordan, meanwhile, weighed her dwindling options. She knew she needed to find an ally, someone she could trust to help her turn the tables. But who? Trust in Port Charles was a rare commodity, and the wrong choice could seal her fate. Her mind raced through possibilities, but each came with its own risks. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that Drew's move had isolated her in a way that was terrifying. If she didn't act quickly, she would be playing his game, not her own. For Sunny and Lulu, the aftermath of their confrontation left both of them unsettled. Lulu replayed Sunny's words, the warning about burning bridges, and though she stood by her stance, she couldn't shake the heaviness in her chest. Standing up to Sunny meant she was no longer protected by the unspoken bond of family loyalty, and that realization stung more than she expected. Still, she believed in her choice, and she refused to second-guess it. Sunny, on the other hand, returned to his world of power plays and family protection, but his mind lingered on Lulu's defiance. Her words echoed in his thoughts, challenging him in ways few people ever dared. He knew he couldn't simply dismiss her or silence her, because Lulu wasn't backing down. That made her both a problem and a force to be reckoned with. As the day closed, Port Charles was left reeling from two explosive confrontations. Drew's blackmail of Jordan set into motion a dangerous power struggle that would test alliances and force hidden truths into the light. Sunny's clash with Lulu fractured bonds that many thought were unbreakable, sending shockwaves through families and friendships. The city was left simmering with tension, everyone bracing for the fallout that was sure to come. Because in Port Charles, no confrontation ever ends in silence. It always echoes, reshaping lives in ways no one can fully predict. And so the pieces moved into place for the battles ahead. Drew's ultimatum to Jordan loomed large, threatening to topple careers and reputations. Sunny and Lulu's argument carved fault lines through family ties that may never fully heal. What happens next is uncertain, but one thing is clear: today marked a turning point, and nothing will ever be the same again. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for all of your updates.